Hi. I feel so good about a lot that I have in my life, and a ton of gratitude for all the goodness I have. And sometimes I feel such a great connection that I was telling my friends it's like this palpable physical feeling, and it feels wonderful. So my question is, how can I maintain that when I'm looking at something that I have no control over that brings me such sadness?
You can't.
So
Don't look.
Well, and I
We're not kidding you, because first of all, the reason you feel that wonderful feeling that you were describing is because you're looking at something and finding the same thing about it that the source within you finds. And so that feeling that you were describing that is indescribable is what it feels like to be so completely blended with the energy of your source. And when you feel that awful feeling that you were describing, because you are looking at something that you can't control, the reason that it feels awful is not because it's an awful thing and not because you can't control it. It's that you've focused yourself out of the vicinity of your source.
And I understand that. So
you set your question up so perfectly for us to make it so easy to answer that it is surprising that it's hard for you to see. In other words, you said, when I look at something good, I feel so good. And when I look at something not good, I feel so not good. And then you said, how can I look at something not good and feel good? And we say there's only one way, and it's never going to happen. Your inner being would have to crawl out of the vortex and be with you.
Okay, so that's why I'm sitting here.
And the gift that your inner being gives you is that your inner being holds steady the standard of who you have become, so that you can find your way to it. In other words, if you're using other people and how they feel or their response to you as your indicator of what to give your attention to, then it can be very confusing. But your inner being, the source within you, will show you right away what things you can think that align you with who you are and what things you can think that don't align you with who you are. And in time, we want you to come to the place where there's just not anything that you are willing to give your attention to that feels like that. Now, sometimes people say, after they've heard us say what we just said, well, what about compassion, and what about empathy, and what about helping out bad situations or not good situations? So here's how it works. So you see that situation and it feels awful to you. And while you're knowing what you don't want, you're launching rockets of desire about what you do want. So you are putting requests for solution into your vibrational reality, into this vortex. And the larger part of you becomes immediately solution oriented. So when you find a way to be in your vortex, then you'll have that awakening that we were talking about on that subject. And you'll find the wonderful other side of the wave of that subject that has the potential of making you feel awful or making you feel good. Does that make sense to you? It's about focusing yourself into true alignment. You want to give us some more detail about it, and we'll...
Sure. I have a daughter that's involved in a relationship that is painful for me to observe. So while I can't choose for her, and she knows, how I feel about it. And about a year ago, I decided to just remove myself from involvement in the relationship, which felt great, because then I wasn't in constant giving attention to it. Now I'm in a situation where I'm being pulled back into having to observe it.
Let's start with where we began earlier today, that while a problem is coming into focus, a solution is too. And the thing that's so interesting about something like this is that First, there are few things, maybe no things, that you will ever care about as much as the well-being of your child. And that's been going on for a long time. And before she became involved in this relationship, you had created a vortex version of her and her happy ever after.
Right.
And so that vortex version that you have created and that she has created, but that you have created, in other words, everyone you know, you create a vortex version of your relationship with them. So that vortex version clashes powerfully with the reality. Now this is where we started today. Abraham, what do I do when reality is so different from what I want? And we say, you can't let reality train your vibration. And that's exactly what's happened. That's why you feel this strong pulling apart, is because most people are so accustomed to letting what is control the way they feel. And we want you to understand that what is does not have to control the way you feel, that there is a vortex version that you could focus on. And if you could focus upon it consistently enough, if you can hold to your vortex version, you align with the energy that creates worlds, and your power of influence is huge. And we're not wanting to imply that you can then create the reality of your daughter or then create the reality of the other in her relationship. But when you are in alignment with who you are, your rendezvousing with them will always match the alignment that is you. It's what we were saying earlier today. What you've got going on vibrationally is what causes the rendezvous. Now, it's a hard thing, we know, when there's evidence, when you see something and you take that emotional hit from it. You see something and you don't want to see it. You become aware of something that you don't want to become aware of because it doesn't match your vortex version. It's something that's happening that you don't want to happen. And we know that it sounds odd to hear us say, take your eyes off of anything, even if it's happening, that you don't want to happen, because it feels like delusion to yourself. It feels like not facing reality. But you have no choice. You can't get to where you want to be. You can't be who you are. You can't have a happy influence to your daughter and her relationship. You can't be who you are is the most important part of it, while you are facing a reality that takes you away from it. So what did we say to you? Does it make sense to you? We want to feel from all of you. Do you accept the reality of this vibrational version? And do you understand that that's where all of your power is, and that's why you feel good when you're there and not good when you're not? And if we can convince you that that sadness, that deep sadness that you feel, that you think is because of what's going on in your daughter's relationship, isn't because of what's going on in your daughter's relationship. It's because of your departure from your version of her happily ever after. And this is the thing that we really have to convince you of. You said all those uncontrollable things. Well, they are uncontrollable and they're not any of your business, but you don't feel bad because there are uncontrollable things that you can't control. You feel bad because there are controllable things that you're not controlling. You see, and that's a world of difference, you see. You're letting your own vision and version be influenced. And so this is what we mean when we say, and almost everybody does it, don't let reality train your vibration, because that's why it feels uncontrollable. But when you train your own vibration, because you have the ability to do it, and most important, you have the desire to do it. This is a bargain that you struck with this girl long before either one of you were born, because you knew, even before you knew each other, that there is no love stronger than mother's love. And you knew that this would be the perfect opportunity for you to discover, and we've never found an opportunity to say it in a more powerful way, that you don't have to choose between the mother's love of her daughter and a creator's love of the vortex. You don't have to choose. You can have them both. You just got to figure out how to have them both. A thought at a time, a thought at a time, a thought at a time, a thought at a time. And you'll find it. You'll get there. You're so there on so many other topics, you'll get there. So now, here's the test to see if you heard us. All of this is not so that you can fix a relationship that's not going well. All of this is so that you can fix a relationship between you and your vortex that isn't going well. It's the relationship between the physical you and the non-physical you. That's the relationship issue. It's not the relationship issue between your daughter and her mate, and it's not the relationship issue between you and your daughter, and it's not the relationship issue between you and your daughter's mate. It's the relationship issue between you and your vortex. And when you get that in place, everything else falls into alignment. Physical well-being is about your relationship with your inner being. Mental well-being is about your relationship with your inner being. Relationship with your husband, it's about your relationship with your inner being. Every relationship is trumped by your relationship with your vortex. And now you feel it, it's all clicking into place. That's why, as you were describing that relationship first and weeping, is because you know that that's the relationship that we're talking about. This other one's just going to help you with this one.
Great. Thank you.